Vol 2, Chapter 12 and 25, Sacrifice, Part 2. In the heat of battle, Sas Ting, already wounded, found himself retreating step by step against the frenzied onslaught of General Dilar. Despite his injuries, Sas Ting employed the third sword technique, Soresu, in an effort to defend himself. General Dilar, fueled by a berserker rage that seemed to intensify with each foe he felled, invoked the strength of his ancestors in the ancient tongue of the Kali people. His fervent prayers seemed to be answered as he brandished not only a lightsaber but also a scimitar, making his attacks increasingly wild and unpredictable. However, Sas Ting, a formidable Jedi Master, began to regain his composure. His mastery over the blade far surpassed that of General Dilar, and his ability to foresee the flow of the battlefield, despite his diminished connection to the Force, allowed him to find his rhythm. With movements that grew ever more serene and precise, Sas Ting finally saw his opportunity. As General Dilar charged, a flash of green from Sas Ting's lightsaber sliced the scimitar in two before piercing General Dilar's body. At that critical moment, a sinister smile crept across General Dilar's face, sending a shiver of foreboding through Sas Ting. But it was too late. His battered body couldn't react in time. In a desperate move, General Dilar embraced Sas Ting, using his unparalleled combat instincts to slightly adjust his position at the last second, avoiding a fatal blow and setting the stage for a devastating counterattack. Then, an explosion shattered the silence. The wall behind Sas Ting erupted, sending a storm of flames, metal, and debris crashing into him. Blood flowed freely as he was caught completely off guard. Emerging from the smoke and rubble was a towering figure, the Kali warrior Ben Telas Sanskar, who Sas Ting had previously incapacitated. Clad only in undergarments, his muscular frame was imposing, dwarfing Sas Ting's considerable height. With a roar, he charged, wielding a smoking bazooka as a club, and struck Sas Ting on the head. Trapped in General Dilar's grasp and reeling from the blow, Sas Ting let out a defiant roar, summoning the last of his strength in a forceful blast that sent his assailants flying. However, this final effort did little to deter Sanskar, who advanced once more, swinging the bazooka with terrifying force. In the chaos, Sas Ting's lightsaber had fallen. Knowing he stood no chance in hand-to-hand combat against the formidable Sanskar, he attempted to retrieve his weapon using the Force. But fate took another twist as General Dilar, despite his grievous injuries, reached out and seized the lightsaber, thwarting Sas Ting's attempt. Caught off guard by General Dilar's intervention, Sas Ting was unable to avoid the next blow from Sanskar's bazooka. The impact broke his arm and sent him crashing into the wall, a gush of blood following the brutal hit. Weakened and unable to summon the Force, Sas Ting could only watch as Sanskar prepared for another strike. This time, the bazooka connected squarely with Sas Ting's forehead. Behind him, General Dilar whispered a name, causing Sanskar to pause momentarily in his assault. Surrounded by the chaos of battle, Ben Telas Sanskar witnessed General Dilar, already gravely injured on the ground, passing Sas Ting's lightsaber to him. With a solemn expression, Sanskar accepted the weapon with both hands, activated it, and decisively severed Sas Ting's head. A surge of strength filled his chest, and he couldn't help but raise his head and let out a triumphant cry. "A Jedi Knight has fallen by my hand." The Kali warriors, having rushed into the fray, echoed his cry upon hearing his declaration. Sanskar then turned his attention back to General Dilar, rushing over to assist the fallen general. With fading strength, Dilar grasped Sanskar's hand, uttering with difficulty, "Ben Telas Sanskar, the Slaughterer." Sanskar, gripping Dilar's hand firmly in return, acknowledged solemnly, "General Dilar, you honor me with this name on behalf of my ancestors. I vow to uphold it forever. As I pass, you will become Inzvashra," wished General Dilar, his voice barely audible. "We, the 8 Inzvashra, have served under the demigod Kiman Jayin Hilal, battling the Hux for decades. You were once a young warrior alongside Mahdi who fell on Planet Hook. Now, with my passing, and Hakimi aged, you will be the last of us." His grip weakened as he spoke. "The last Inzvashra. Ah, the glory of our Kali ancestors. Inzvashra, the greatest warrior." Kneeling, Ben Telas Sanskar cradled General Dilar's cooling body, beginning the ancient Kali Song of Returning Soul. This deep, haunting melody was a tribute to Dilar, guiding his soul back to their ancestors. The surrounding Kali warriors joined in, their voices not harmonious but filled with a mysterious power. As the song filled the air, every Kali warrior within earshot ceased their actions, knelt, and joined the mournful chorus. Some even marked their animal bone masks with fresh lines of blood in tribute. After the song concluded, Sanskar gently laid General Dilar's body down. He approached Sastin's corpse, removed the animal bone mask from his face, and placed it upon his own. Dipping his hand in the blood of the fallen Jedi Master, he then pressed it against the mask, leaving a stark, bloodied palm print that rendered the mask even more menacing. Lifting General Dilar's body, Sanskar led the procession of Kali warriors. From this day forward, he was Inzvashra, a title reserved for the most esteemed warriors of the Kali. His defeat of Sastin, a formidable Jedi Master, marked the highest achievement in Kali history against the Jedi. This act, believed to be ordained by the ancestors through General Dilar's oracle, solidified his position as the new general of the Kali forces. The bloodied palm print on his mask symbolized the Kali's vendetta against the Republic and the Jedi Order. Bentila Sanskar, dubbed the Slaughterer, was determined to reclaim justice from the Galactic Republic and the Jedi Order through bloodshed. The demise of Jedi Master Sastin was merely the beginning. Meanwhile, in the meditation hall of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, Master Yoda was suddenly overcome with a profound sense of loss and sorrow. Rising from his meditation, he clutched his chest, tears streaming down his face as he sensed the fall of a member of the High Council of the Jedi Order, Master Sastin. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that request." Vol 2, Chapter 12 and 26. The North, 10. The critical information that Master Sastin had risked his life to send was actually delivered to Fan Ke, the governor of the 8th Army of the Galactic Republic. He dismissed the idea of deploying from the Ord-Mantle planet to strike at the Geth core. "Send the information to Coruscant, to the Republic Intelligence Headquarters," Fan Ke ordered with a wave of his hand. "Really? Just passing the responsibility to Coruscant?" Longo, the commander of the 8th Army Fleet, questioned, puffing on his Nakong spice pipe. "Am I to dispatch my prized main fleet from Ord-Mantle to the distant Kalion sector to confront the Geth in their stronghold with their capabilities largely unknown? If I were to do that, I might as well resign as governor," Fan Ke retorted with a sneer. This information was sent back by Master Sastin in his final moments. Longo pointed out, though his expression lacked any real sense of mourning or respect. "But it holds no value for us," Fan Ke replied dismissively. "Perhaps Coruscant will find it useful. Regardless, embarking on a mission to the Carrion sector to seek and destroy the Geth is not our concern." Longo nodded in agreement, then shifted the conversation. "What about the situation on planet Megiddo? Do you require my fleet's assistance? The outpost has detected at least 3 Geth fleets converging on Megiddo from various directions. The conflict there is expected to be intense," Fan Ke explained. Their discussion then veered towards the strategic considerations regarding planet Megiddo, effectively sidelining the sacrifice of Master Sastin as if it were of no consequence. "This will certainly put those separatists in their place," Longo remarked with a chuckle. "It's best if our fleet remains stationary. The human faction of the Interstellar Banking Association should be the ones to make the next move on planet Scipio," Fan Ke suggested. "When they act, that will be our cue. For now, let them weaken each other." "Just stand by and watch?" Longo questioned, concern evident in his voice. "If a definitive victor emerges on Megiddo, regardless of which side it is, it won't bode well for us." "That's not our immediate concern," Fan Ke reassured him. "The Geth are beyond what our 8th Army can handle. Our priority is to align with the higher-ups and address the threat posed by the Interstellar Banking Association." Longo frowned, pondering the situation. "I'm still not convinced. I'll dispatch a few ships to scout Megiddo, just in case something significant occurs and we're caught off guard." "Thank you," Fan Ke responded nonchalantly with a wave of his hand. However, before Longo could act on his decision, an urgent message arrived. "Your Excellency, the Governor, Planet Megiddo has initiated an emergency asylum protocol," an intelligence officer reported breathlessly. "Emergency protocol? What does that entail?" Longo inquired, perplexed. Fan Ke's demeanor turned grave, It's a protocol activated when a planet housing the Interstellar Banking Association faces a dire threat. They begin to evacuate the most valuable assets from the planet. Assets? Are we talking about money? Longo asked, seeking clarification. For an entity as vast as the Interstellar Banking Association, there are things far more valuable than money, Fan Ke explained. He then turned to the intelligence officer. What's the word from Scipio? Rush Clovis, a senior sector director of the Interplanetary Banking Association, is awaiting communication on a secure frequency, the officer informed them. Patch him through, Fan Ke commanded. The screen flickered momentarily before displaying the image of a serious-looking human male dressed in a formal suit. It was none other than Rush Clovis, a top executive of the Interstellar Banking Association who had previously been involved with Padme Amidala. Following a betrayal by Padme and Anakin, which led to the leak of a supercarrier project and subsequent accountability, Clovis had ascended to a leadership position within the association, a testament to his resilience in both love and career. Under the protection and support of Sheev Palpatine, Speaker of the Galactic Council, Rush Clovis's status within the Interstellar Banking Association had soared. He had ascended to become the leader of the human faction, a position of considerable power and influence. Governor Fan Ke, Planet Makito has activated an emergency evacuation agreement. I request that you dispatch your fleet immediately to enter the vicinity of Planet Makito. It is imperative that the cargo being transported from Makito reaches Planet Scipio without incident, Rush Clovis commanded with an authoritative tone. Despite addressing the governor of the 8th Army of the Galactic Republic, Clovis did not consider him an equal. The Geth are currently on Megiddo, Fan Ke pointed out. That is precisely why I have approached you, Clovis responded. I need you to secure what's on Megiddo, even if it means risking an entire fleet. But we are in the dark about the situation on Megiddo, Longo interjected. Do you really believe the Geth are merely engaging in trivial pursuits with Thornhill and others on Megiddo? Clovis retorted, his voice growing colder. Since you lack information about Megiddo, I suggest you send your fleet to investigate. And what if the emergency evacuation agreement on planet Makito is a hoax? Fan Ke questioned. If it turns out to be a ruse, then simply withdraw. Allow the Geth and planet Megiddo to continue their conflict until a victor emerges, Clovis replied nonchalantly. I'm still puzzled, Longo admitted. If the cargo from planet Megiddo is truly valuable, why didn't they just transport it discreetly? Clovis looked at him with disdain. The cargo is being used as bait to compel us to dispatch aid. Without offering something of genuine value, why would anyone risk their lives for the control of planet Makito? If the separatists in the north had the means to save Megiddo, would they have waited until now? Longo nodded, his understanding deepening. That's all I have time for. I leave the situation on planet Makito in your hands. If my suspicions are correct, the inhabitants of Makito plan to use the chaos of your fleet's arrival to their advantage, sending the cargo to planet Mulinster. You must intercept them. This cargo is worth more than your entire fleet combined. With those final words, Rush Clovis ended the communication abruptly, leaving no room for further discussion. Vol 2, Chapter 12 and 27, Fatal Miscalculation. After Rush Clovis ended the communication, Longo paused to think before speaking. Something doesn't sit right with me. How many separatist warships are currently stationed on the planet Megiddo, according to our latest intelligence? Fan Ke asked, his brow furrowed in thought. There are over 50,000 meter-class capital ships, along with more than 100 small and medium-sized warships. Longo replied directly. And based on observations from our outposts, the number of Geth warships arriving at Megiddo has exceeded 130, many of which are smaller vessels. If we account for movements we haven't been able to observe, the Geth might have more than 200 battleships. With a fleet of that size, a fierce battle between the Separatists and the Geth should be expected. Moreover, the Geth are indeed reinforcing their presence on Megiddo. Fan Ke noted. The Geth's battleships are significantly more powerful, being at least 2 to 3 times stronger than a Republic battleship of the same size. Such a balance of power would pose a considerable challenge for Megiddo's defenders. Longo stroked his chin, adding, difficult, yes, but not impossible. So, is Megiddo planning to send something out while they still have the strength to fight? They lack sufficient troops, so their only option was to issue the emergency asylum agreement, knowing it would compel us to respond. Exactly. The moment the emergency asylum agreement is issued, we are bound to respond. Fan Ke agreed. Rush Clovis was correct. Whatever the Interstellar Banking Association is sending, be it a database, a bill, or something else, it's evidently more valuable than our fleet. Megiddo is seizing this opportunity to fish in troubled waters. Longo suddenly speculated, imagine if the Geth and Megiddo's fleets didn't engage in battle, would it be? He chuckled at his own thought. Admittedly, that was a jest. If I hadn't known you for years, I might have accused you of shirking your duty, Fan Ke said with a smile, but we must consider the possibility of greater losses. I'm deploying the fleet, Longo declared, tapping his empty spice pipe on the table. Megiddo hopes to distract us with the Geth so they can smuggle items out? Well, I'll do the opposite. I'll capture their transport ship with a tractor beam and force them to continue engaging the Geth. We should try to minimize the loss of our battleships. After all, we have much to accomplish, Fan Ke cautioned. Longo nodded. Don't worry, my friend. I'm a bounty hunter. Fishing in troubled waters? I excel at it, far more than some aristocratic kid like Rush Clovis who grew up in the inner circle. With their plan set, Longo immediately began preparations. It never occurred to them that the Geth and Megiddo might be allies. From the Geth's emergence, all they had shown was hostility, bringing death and plunder to every targeted planet. Whether it was a separatist planet or one belonging to the Galactic Republic, all had suffered under the Geth's onslaught. The Geth's actions were unmistakably hostile towards organic life. Indeed, no one would suspect that a race of mechanical beings would harbor any friendly intentions towards organic life forms. Despite the Galactic Republic suffering more attacks, this was mainly because in the northern region, aside from core planets like Mullenster and Megiddo, the Republic still maintained control. Under such circumstances, the large-scale movement of the Geth to Megiddo, with their numbers still increasing, suggested nothing other than an impending fierce battle between the two forces. In the midst of the unfolding chaos, the belief that Geth and the planet Megiddo could be allies was dismissed as utterly impossible by Fan Ke and his associates. They were convinced that any suggestion to the contrary, such as the one casually mentioned by Longo, was nothing more than a feeble attempt to avoid conflict. However, unbeknownst to them, Longo's offhand remark was, in fact, the stark truth. They were on the cusp of realizing this reality, separated only by a mere few seconds. In the barracks on the planet Kali, Master Sasting had already been informed of this critical alliance. Yet just as he was about to act on this information, a distress signal from Megiddo, showing the havoc wrought by the Geth, caught his attention. This unexpected development sowed a seed of doubt in his mind. In those crucial moments of hesitation, General Delar, whom Sasting had previously incapacitated, seized the opportunity to disrupt the communication, preventing the vital information from being transmitted. This failure to communicate can be traced back to the actions of Fan Ke and Longo themselves. Their decision to ignore the Geth invasion, their collusion with Schiff Palpatine and Rush Clovis to undermine the Interplanetary Banking Association, and their devious plan to draw the Geth to Megiddo, all while keeping Master Sasting in the dark, set the stage for this unfortunate outcome. Had they chosen a different path, the truth about the Geth's invasion and their alliance with the Separatists could have been revealed in time. The few seconds of delay had far-reaching implications, leading to a critical misjudgment. Based on their flawed understanding, Fan Ke and Longo ordered the 8th Army's main fleet to head straight to Megiddo, expecting to encounter a fierce battle between the Geth and Separatist fleets. They hoped to exploit the chaos to their advantage and secure an emergency evacuation treaty from the planet. However, the reality they faced was starkly different from their expectations. As the 60 Jaeger-class battlecruisers of the Galactic Republic's 8th Army departed from Ordmantle and entered hyperspace, they unknowingly fell into a meticulously laid trap by the Geth and Tang Xiao. This strategic blunder was a direct consequence of their misjudgment and failure to grasp the true dynamics at play, leading them into a situation far more perilous than they had anticipated. Vol 2, Chapter 1228, The Northern Territory. Outside the window, countless strips of light shone brightly, enough to make one dizzy if stared at for too long. At this moment, Longo, the commander of the 8th Army Fleet of the Galactic Republic, felt a wave of unease. He ordered the bridge's porthole armor to be closed. "Young master, wake up quickly. It's our turn to patrol." "Where am I?" Qin sat up, disoriented. He felt a chill, and the howling wind outside added to his confusion. "Oh, young master, how can you be so bewildered? We're in the barracks. It's our turn for guard duty. If we neglect our duties, military law will take its course. The old master can no longer protect you." "What?" Qin eyes snapped open, finding himself in a tent, facing a soldier clad in leather armor. Just as he was about to inquire further, a splitting headache overtook him, accompanied by a flood of information. Within seconds, he realized he had transmigrated. From a modern special soldier, he had become Qin, notorious as the leader of the 7 villains in the capital of an era known as the Dayu dynasty, a dynasty that never existed in his original history. Qin ancestor was one of the 28 marquises among the 4 founders of Dayu. 3 months prior, his father passed away, and Qin inherited the title of Champion Marquis. Spoiled from childhood, he had little interest in academics or martial arts. As he grew older, to ensure he was taken care of, his family arranged a marriage for him with Chen Ruoli, the eldest daughter of the Chen family, known for her beauty and intelligence. Despite his notorious behavior, Qin treasured his beautiful and intelligent fiancée. However, tragedy struck during a visit to Princess Chang'an, a childhood friend of Chen Ruoli. After a banquet arranged by the princess, Qin, having drunk excessively, woke up in the inner guard's prison, accused of making improper advances toward the princess while intoxicated. Adding to his shock, Chen Ruoli had penned a letter accusing Qin of 72 crimes, each substantiated with evidence. It felt like a bolt from the blue. An imperial decree soon followed, sparing Qin the death penalty due to his ancestors' meritorious service, but not exempting him from punishment. He was swiftly dispatched to the front lines in Yuzhou, directly into the fray. As Qin pieced together these memories, he realized he had fallen into a trap. The Chen family had long sought to sever ties with him. The marriage between the Qin and Chen families was political, aimed at strengthening both houses. However, Qin dissolute lifestyle had brought shame upon the Champion Marquis lineage, a lineage historically known for its heroic contributions and unparalleled military influence. With the passing of the old Marquis, the Chen family saw an opportunity to publicly disown Qin despite his deep love for Chen Ruoli, who had grown to despise him. The situation with Princess Chang'an was simpler. She was the cousin of Qin cousin, who stood to inherit the vast estate of the Champion Hao mansion upon Qin demise. This web of intrigue and betrayal had ensnared Qin, leading him to his current predicament on the harsh front lines. In the midst of colluding forces, each with their own agendas, unity was swiftly achieved. Indeed, upon entering the Hao family, it became evident that it was as treacherous as the sea, with numerous individuals wishing for his demise. "Qinan, do you think we should find a place to take cover?" Under the luminous glow of the moon, the harsh northern wind howled across the open field, snuffing out several torches. The wind, akin to countless knives, sliced through the air, chilling to the bone. "Impossible, young master. Defying orders would result in military punishment," Qin replied, as he and Qinan braced against the wind, hastily exiting the camp and trudging through the thick snow. Unprepared for the gust, Qinan was nearly knocked over by the force. Observing their departure, the 2 sentinels Ning shifts exchanged sly grins, doused the bonfire meant for warmth with snow, and retreated to their tent. Cursing under his breath, Qin realized even the rank-and-file soldiers had been bribed, all part of a scheme to leave him to freeze. Their small encampment, comprising roughly 20 tents and surrounded by horse-drawn carriages, lacked any strategic defenses. It was a vulnerable outpost, stationed with about 200 soldiers, serving as the vanguard battalion under General Li Qin of the Yu dynasty. Their mission was to confront the Liaodong kingdom, a long-standing adversary at the border. "Cough, young master, do you reckon we'll make it back alive?" Chinon, huddled on the snow, his lips and face tinged with blue from the cold, spoke with a frail voice, hinting at his looming demise. Jinhu felt a pang of guilt. Chinan's suffering was a direct consequence of his own predicament. If the situation persisted, their fate was sealed. Those who sought his downfall had not succeeded in the court, but seemed determined to do so in the barracks. However, Jinhu was not one to resign to fate. Framed and wronged, he was determined not only to survive, but to return to the capital and seek justice. "Chinon, how much money did we bring with us?" he inquired, already formulating a plan. "I have no banknotes left, only 20 taels of silver. According to the imperial decree, we've been exiled and our assets confiscated," Chinon replied, a mere 16-year-old, serving as Chinhu's loyal attendant. Their situation was dire. Tasked with grueling labor such as road construction, bridge building, wood chopping, and camp setup, they endured the harshest conditions among the battalion's robust soldiers. It was a relentless cycle of exhausting work, meager meals, and frequent beatings. "Give it to me," Chinhu said decisively, knowing that their survival hinged on immediate action. While bribing high-ranking officials was out of the question due to his tarnished reputation and lack of substantial funds, he considered a more accessible target for his plan, Centurion Li Xiaokun, the leader of the Pioneer Battalion. Though a primitive approach, leveraging wealth to influence others was a strategy that could still yield results in their desperate circumstances. As they plotted their next move, Chinhu was determined to safeguard Chinan's life first and foremost, fully aware that navigating the treacherous political and military landscape required both cunning and resilience. "It appears there was a misunderstanding in your request. The provided text does not contain a narrative or content from a novel that can be edited or enhanced according to your instructions. Instead, it seems to be a placeholder or an instruction for downloading content from an app, unrelated to a Harry Potter fanfiction or any novel's chapter. If you have a specific excerpt or chapter from a fanfiction or any other text you'd like to be improved, please provide the actual narrative content. Ensure the text is appropriate and aligns with the guidelines for content improvement you've outlined. I'm here to help with editing and enhancing the text to improve its quality." Volume 2, Chapter 1229, Storm in the North, 12. Admiral Longo's flagship was struck by 2 turbolaser shots. The first hit the rear side of the battleship near turret B, while the second impacted the underside of the bridge. Fortunately, the ship's armor held up well, suffering no significant damage beyond the initial shock and some shedding of the outer armor. As the second wave of the Separatist fleet's salvo fire arrived, the Galactic Republic fleet, which had yet to activate its shields, began to incur losses. The turbolaser cannon fire pummeled the armor of a Jaeger-class battlecruiser, igniting violent explosions and flames. Although the majority of the shots failed to penetrate the armor, the resulting flames and thick smoke painted a grim picture for the Republic fleet, which had only just entered the fray and was already facing a dire situation. In response, the Republic battleships returned fire, and a large number of fighter jets were launched. As the fleets closed in on each other, reaching a distance of about 10 light seconds, their laser cannons roared to life. The intense laser beams crisscrossed between the battleships of both sides, causing energy shields to ripple and armor to burn in seas of flame. Meanwhile, the fighters from both factions engaged in fierce combat. The Separatists, having the advantage of fighting on their home turf, launched a formidable force of over 6,000 fighter jets in their first attack wave alone. The majority were Vulture droid fighters, supplemented by a smaller number of Tri-Fighter droids and Hyena droid bombers. These fighters launched directly from a space station near the planet, sparing the battleship's transport capacity. In contrast, the Republic fleet, despite having 60 Jaeger-class battlecruisers with a theoretical capacity for 24,000 aircraft, was not fully equipped. Ongoing combat attrition and pilot replenishment issues left them with fewer than 10,000 fighter jets, some of which were outdated Z-95 headhunters. However, the presence of the Geth fleet, known for its highly maneuverable light frigates, posed a significant threat to the Republic's fighters, despite not launching their own fighters immediately. The fighter groups from both sides clashed fiercely over tens of thousands of kilometers, while the warship's artillery fire intertwined in a relentless exchange. The Republic fleet, still without its shields raised, suffered heavy losses once again when two Jaeger-class battlecruisers were struck by a devastating plasma beam, resulting in catastrophic explosions and flames that tore huge gaps in the battleships, rendering them almost instantly paralyzed. The defense fleet of the separatist forces on the planet Megiddo, comprised of the Fourth Group and the Interstellar Banking Association, boasted formidable firepower. Among their capital ships were Generosity-class communication frigates, Disobedient-class light destroyers, 5 Shenyi-class destroyers, and 12 Behemoth-class battlecruisers. The Behemoth-class ships, in particular, posed a grave threat to the unshielded Jaeger-class battlecruisers of the Republic. "General, we can't last long if this continues," the adjutant shouted to Admiral Longo on the bridge of the Republic fleet's flagship. "How long until the hyperdrive is activated?" Admiral Longo demanded. "I don't know. The energy index is fluctuating wildly, ranging from 10 minutes to 5 hours, the operator of the hyperspace engine replied, nervously eyeing the constantly changing numbers on the screen and sweating profusely. "Why is there such a large margin of error?" Admiral Longo exclaimed, frustration evident in his voice as the battle raged on around them. Admiral Longo's voice was filled with frustration and confusion. "Maybe it's electronic interference, maybe. If it's just electronic interference, then it would only affect the system's display. It can't possibly interfere with the hyperspace engine." Longo clearly lacked understanding of the situation. "If that's the case, then we might be dealing with hyperspace turbulence," he speculated. "How can there be hyperspace turbulence in this region?" Longo retorted, disbelief evident in his tone. An intelligence officer chimed in. "Perhaps it's a hyperspace suppressor. During the Battle of Bespin and the Battle of Ariadu, the Separatists deployed such devices to interfere with hyperspace jumps. However, these devices must be strategically placed in advance and are known for their fragility, making them easily destroyed. But in our current predicament, locating a hyperspace suppressor is beyond our capabilities," Admiral Longo stated gravely. "And what about their small ships deploying electronic interference? Haven't we dealt with them yet?" "Those ships are highly maneuverable and, while unarmed, possess formidable electronic jamming capabilities. Some of our single fighter formations have been completely incapacitated by them. So far, we've only managed to shoot down 5. The adjutant reported, wiping away a bead of sweat nervously. Admiral Longo turned his attention to the projected screen, which displayed an optical image of one of these electronic warfare (EW) crafts captured by their fighter formation. The ship, approximately 93 meters in length, resembled a U-shaped catamaran, with its hulls on either side outfitted with numerous powerful electronic antennas. These ships were not only fast, but also had high deflector shield readings, a result of completely foregoing any weapon systems. "Is this the culprit?" Longo asked, his expression stern. "We've intercepted communications from the enemy, identifying this warship as the Sentinel class. A Sentinel class heavy electronic warfare frigate," the adjutant explained. "It's these Sentinel-class ships that have formed an electronic jamming network, almost completely severing our communications, disrupting the energy systems of our battleships, and even interfering with the firing mechanisms of our main guns." Longo clenched his fists tightly. The Separatists have begun incorporating this electronic warfare technology across their fleet, from the Doomsday Battlefield-class battlecruisers initially encountered to the Titan battleship Xuanwu, seen in the Battle of Ariadu. And now, the Sentinel. "The Separatists seem to prefer engaging us in asymmetrical warfare, avoiding direct competition in terms of ship performance and numbers," the adjutant observed. "And they've succeeded," Longo said through gritted teeth. "What do we do, General? If this continues, we might not be able to sustain the activation of the hyperspace engine. The electronic interference has significantly diminished our battleship's combat capabilities. If we can't reactivate the deflector shield soon, our entire fleet will be annihilated within half an hour," the adjutant warned. After a moment of contemplation, Longo commanded, "Order the ships to raise their deflector shields and hold their positions." Then begin retreating from the battlefield. Keep the shields down and attempt to start the hyperspace engine as soon as possible to escape this area. Understood, the adjutant responded promptly. Meanwhile, in the command center of the outer orbital space station of Makito, a different scene unfolded. I knew the outcome of this battle before it even began. Why waste my time? Tang Xiao, the governor of Dawn Star, remarked with a hint of disdain as his holographic projection filled the screen. We eliminated a Jedi Master, very powerful, a Geth individual reported, referencing their database. His name was Sastin. Tang Xiao couldn't help but laugh. Huh? Sastin is dead? Ah! The Republic's cooperation has made our plan proceed far more smoothly than anticipated. If they hadn't been so naive, executing our strategy wouldn't have been this effortless. Thornhill added, Indeed, our plan has unfolded without a hitch. The Galactic Republic rushed in almost unprepared. It seems they underestimated the connection between us and the Geth. Tang Xiao's laughter echoed, a sound filled with both triumph and anticipation for what was yet to come. With a sneer, the speaker remarked, It appears that the so-called member of the Supreme Council, Sas Ting, is merely a waste of space. He sacrificed his life on the planet Kali, yet he achieved nothing of value. And to think he assassinated General Delar. Does he truly believe that Delar's death will alter the course of the battle? Easter Egg Chapter Attachment 1, Sentinel-class Electronic Warfare Frigate. Please remember to visit our website for more updates. Vol 2 Chapter 1230, Northland, 13. In the Northland, where the wind howls and the clouds loom ominously, Tang Xiao couldn't contain his laughter, his voice filled with unbridled ridicule. To him, the eternal battle between light and darkness was more than just a conflict. It was a personal affront. The very mention of the Jedi Knights, warriors of the light, was enough to make his skin crawl. Yet, his mockery was abruptly interrupted. Young master, wake up! It's our turn to patrol. A voice urgently broke through the silence. Blinking open his eyes in confusion, Chinhu sat up, a chill running down his spine as the relentless wind battered the tent. Where am I? He murmured, disoriented. Oh, young master, how can you be so bewildered? We're in the barracks. It's our duty to stand guard now. If we shirk our responsibilities, military law won't spare us. And with the old master gone, there's no one to protect you. The soldier in leather armor in front of him explained, a hint of urgency in his voice. What? Chinhu's confusion deepened, but before he could probe further, a sharp pain cleaved through his head. A torrent of memories flooded his mind, and within seconds, he understood the gravity of his situation. He had transmigrated from a modern-day Special Forces soldier to a young master named Chinhu, notorious as one of the capital's 7 villains in an era known as the Dayu Dynasty, a time and place that had never existed in his world. 3 months prior, Chinhu's father had succumbed to illness, leaving him to inherit the title of Champion Marquis. Raised in the lap of luxury, Chinhu had little interest in scholarly pursuits or martial training. As he came of age, his family arranged a marriage for him to Chen Ruoli, the esteemed eldest daughter of the Chen family. Known for her beauty and intelligence, Chen Ruoli was Chinhu's cherished fiancée, despite his otherwise ruthless demeanor. However, their relationship took a disastrous turn during a visit to Princess Chang'an, a childhood friend of Chen Ruoli. After a night of excessive drinking, Chinhu awoke in the inner guard's prison, accused of making improper advances toward the princess. To his shock, Chen Ruoli had penned a letter accusing him of 72 crimes, each allegation more damning than the last. The imperial decree that followed was a slight reprieve, sparing him the death penalty due to his ancestors' meritorious service, but condemning him to a life of hardship on the front lines in Yuzhou. As Chinhu pieced together these memories, he realized he had fallen into a meticulously laid trap. The Chen family had long sought to sever ties with him, viewing the marriage as nothing more than a political alliance meant to bolster their respective families' power. But Chinhu's failure to live up to the Champion Marquis' legacy, especially in contrast to his heroic ancestors, had made him a liability. With his father's death, the Chen family saw an opportunity to publicly disown him, despite Chinhu's deep affection for Chen Ruoli, who had grown to despise him. And as for Princess Chang'an, her motives were clear. With Chinhu out of the picture, The vast wealth of the champion marquis would fall into the hands of her cousin. Caught in the crossfire of these converging interests, Qin realized the depth of the catastrophe that had befallen him. Each party involved had their own agenda, seeking to exploit the situation for their gain. Under the bright moonlight, the harsh north wind whistled across the open field, extinguishing several torches. It felt like countless knives slicing through the skin. Qin and Qin, huddled against the wind, hurried out of the camp, their steps muffled by the thick snow. Qin, slight of build, was nearly knocked over by the fierce gusts. As they emerged, the two sentinels exchanging shifts exchanged sly smiles, scooped up handfuls of snow to douse the bonfire meant for warmth, and retreated into their tent. Damn, even the rank-and-file soldiers have been bribed, trying to freeze me to death, Qin thought bitterly. This was a modest camp, comprising about 20 tents encircled by horse-drawn carriages. Notably absent were the defensive structures typically seen outside such encampments, leaving the area exposed and vulnerable. According to Qin recollections from a previous life, this camp housed the vanguard battalion of Li Qin, a general of the Yu dynasty, numbering around 200 soldiers. Their mission was to confront the Liaodong kingdom, a long-standing adversary of the Yu dynasty. Shivering in the snow, Qin asked weakly, his face and lips tinged blue from the cold, "Young master, do you think we can make it back alive?" Qin felt a pang of guilt. Qin, his loyal bookboy and only 16 years old, was suffering purely because of his association with Qin. If the situation didn't change, they were both doomed. Those who sought Qin demise had not succeeded in the court, but it seemed they might yet achieve their goal in the barracks. However, Qin was not one to resign himself to fate. He was determined not to let the machinations against him go unchallenged. Life is a constant battle for survival, he resolved. Just wait. I will not only survive, but I will also return to the capital to settle scores. Turning to Qin, he inquired, "How much money did we bring with us?" Qin replied, "I don't have any banknotes left. I only have 20 taels of silver. The imperial decree stated that we would be exiled and our property confiscated." Their situation was dire. The pioneer battalion had been marching 30 miles a day, with Qin and Qin tasked with the most grueling labor, clearing paths, constructing bridges over water, chopping firewood, digging ditches, carrying water, and setting up camp. For two individuals unaccustomed to such harsh conditions, the work was backbreaking, the food scarce and poor, the beatings frequent, and the resentment deep. Qin knew that his predecessor might have succumbed to such treatment, a fate he now faced. But he was determined to endure, to survive, and to protect Qin at all costs. "Give me the silver," he said, already formulating a plan. The simplest way to ensure their survival was through bribery. While crude, it was often effective. Yet, with their limited resources and Qin pariah status, they couldn't hope to influence anyone of significant rank. Then, a name came to mind, Centurion Li Shokun, the current leader of the pioneer battalion. Perhaps, through him, they could find a way to survive this ordeal. Vol 2, Chapter 1231, Makito's Gift. Miracles were a rarity, and for Admiral Longo, commander of the 8th Army Fleet of the Galactic Republic, this harsh reality was confirmed in the most brutal manner. His fleet, the main force of the 8th Army, consisting of 60 Jaeger-class battlecruisers, was annihilated within approximately 90 minutes of engaging in battle. "Young master, wake up quickly. It's our turn to patrol." "Where am I?" Qin sat up, his mind foggy. He felt a chill in his bones, exacerbated by the strong winds howling outside the tent. Confusion clouded his thoughts. "Oh, young master, how can you be so bewildered? We're in the barracks. It's our shift to stand guard. If we shirk our duty, military law will not be lenient. The old master is no longer here to protect you." "What?" Qin's eyes snapped open, taking in his surroundings. He was indeed in a tent, and before him stood a soldier clad in leather armor. As he was about to inquire further, a splitting headache overtook him, accompanied by a flood of memories not his own. In a matter of seconds, he understood. He had transmigrated. From a modern Special Forces soldier to a young master named Qin, notorious as one of the capital's 7 villains, in an era belonging to the Dayu dynasty, a period absent from any historical record. Qinhu's lineage traced back to one of the 28 marquises among the 4 founders of Dayu. 3 months prior, his father succumbed to illness, and Qinhu ascended as the new champion marquise. Spoiled from childhood, he had little interest in scholarly pursuits or martial training. As he matured, to ensure he was well cared for, his family arranged a marriage for him. His betrothed was Chen Roli, the eldest daughter of the Chen Guogong family, celebrated for her beauty and intelligence. Despite his notorious demeanor, Qinhu cherished his exquisite and intelligent fiancée like a precious gem. However, tragedy struck this childhood sweetheart, Miss Chen. According to Qinhu's newfound memories, he had escorted his fiancée to the palace to pay respects to Princess Chang'an, a childhood friend of Chen Roli. A banquet was organized in their honor. But after indulging in too much drink, Qinhu awoke in the inner guard's prison, accused of drunkenly attempting to dishonor the princess. To his shock, Chen Roli had penned a letter accusing Qinhu of 72 crimes, each claim substantiated with evidence. The news struck Qinhu like a thunderbolt, disbelief rendering him speechless. An imperial decree soon followed, sparing Qinhu the death penalty due to his ancestors' meritorious service, yet condemning him to a life of penance. He was swiftly dispatched to the front lines, stationed at the pioneer tent. Piecing together these memories, Qinhu realized he had fallen into a meticulously laid trap. The Chen family had long sought to sever ties with him. The marriage between the Qin and Chen families was a political alliance, each seeking to enhance their power and influence. However, Qinhu's dissolute lifestyle brought shame upon the champion Marquis lineage, a family historically revered for producing heroes of unparalleled military prowess. With his father's passing, the Chen family saw an opportunity to disassociate from the disgraced Marquis. Despite Qinhu's deep affection for Chen Roli, she harbored nothing but contempt for him, viewing him as a vile scoundrel. Thus, a calamity was set into motion. As for Princess Chang'an, her motives were simpler. Being a cousin of Qinhu's cousin, she stood to inherit the vast wealth of the champion Marquis estate upon Qinhu's demise. Amidst these converging interests, a storm brewed, each party poised to claim their desired prize. Under the bright moonlight, the harsh northern wind howled across the open field, its piercing whistle snuffing out several torches. The wind, like countless knives, cut through the skin of those exposed to its fury. "Qinan, do you think we should find a place to take cover?" Qinhu asked, his voice barely audible over the wind. "No way, young master. You'll be subjected to military law." Qinhu and Qinan, huddled together against the biting wind, hurried out of the camp, their steps muffled by the thick snow. Qinan, slight of build, was nearly knocked over by a particularly strong gust. As they left, the 2 sentries assigned to change the guard exchanged sly glances, scooped up handfuls of snow to extinguish the bonfire meant for warmth, and retreated into their tent. Cursing under his breath, Qinhu realized that even the rank-and-file soldiers had been bribed, all part of a scheme to freeze him to death. The camp, modest in size with about 20 tents and surrounded by horse-drawn carriages, lacked any strategic defenses. It was a stark, flat expanse, vulnerable from all sides. This was the vanguard battalion of Li Qin, general of the Yu dynasty, stationed here with around 200 men. Their mission was to lead an assault on the Liaodong kingdom, a long-standing adversary of the Yu dynasty. "Ahem, young master, do you think we'll make it back alive?" Qinan asked, curled up in the snow, his lips and face tinged blue from the cold, his voice weak and fragile. Qinhu felt a pang of guilt. Qinan's suffering was a direct result of his own predicament. If the situation didn't change, they were both doomed. The court hadn't managed to kill him, but it seemed the military would. Yet, Qinhu was not one to resign himself to fate. He was determined not only to survive, but to return to the capital and seek justice. "Qinan, how much money did we bring with us?" Qinhu inquired, already formulating a plan. "I don't have any banknotes left. I only have 20 taels of silver on me. According to the imperial decree, we've been exiled and our property confiscated," Qinan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Qinan, only 16, served as Qinhu's personal attendant. The conditions they endured were harsh. The Pioneer Battalion's daily march covered 30 miles, with tasks including road construction, bridge building, wood chopping, ditch digging, and camp setup. For two individuals unaccustomed to such labor, the work was grueling, the food scarce and poor, and the treatment harsh. Qin-Hu knew he had to act swiftly to save Qin-An. In their dire circumstances, bribery seemed the most viable option, despite its simplicity. However, with their limited resources and Qin-Hu's precarious position, influencing high-ranking officials was out of the question. His thoughts turned to Centurion Li Shaokun, the leader of the Pioneer Battalion, as a potential ally in their struggle for survival. To continue following their story, please download the Haoye Novel app for the latest ad-free chapters. The website no longer hosts the most recent updates, which are now exclusively available on the Haoye Novel app. Vol 2, Chapter 1232, The Great Heist, 1. Chapter 1232, Shocking Robbery, Part 1. Have Governor Fan Ki and his team succeeded? But why hasn't the news come from their headquarters on the planet Aldermantle? Rush Clovis furrowed his brow in confusion. After a moment of thought, he reassured himself. Okay. Young master, wake up quickly. It's our turn to patrol. Where am I? Qin-Hu sat up, groggy and disoriented. He felt a chill in the air, and the howling wind outside added to his sense of unease. Oh, young master, how can you be so confused? We're in the barracks. It's our turn to stand guard. If we shirk our duty, military law will take its course. Your father can't protect you now. What? Qin-Hu's eyes snapped open, taking in his surroundings. He was indeed in a tent, and a soldier clad in leather armor stood before him. Just as he was about to inquire further, a splitting headache overtook him, accompanied by a flood of memories rushing into his mind. Within seconds, he realized he had transmigrated from a modern Special Forces soldier to a young master named Qin-Hu, notorious as one of the 7 villains in the capital of an era known as the Dayu Dynasty, a period that never existed in recorded history. Qin-Hu's ancestor was among the 28 marquises who were foundational to the Dayu Dynasty's establishment. 3 months prior, Qin-Hu's father passed away from illness, making Qin-Hu the new champion marquise. Spoiled from childhood, Qin-Hu had little interest in academics or martial arts. As he grew older, his family, hoping he would settle down, arranged a marriage for him with Chen Ruoli, the eldest daughter of the Chen family, a woman celebrated for her beauty and intelligence. Despite his notorious behavior, Qin-Hu treasured his beautiful and intelligent fiancée above all else. However, a calamity befell his betrothed, Miss Chen. According to Qin-Hu's memories, he had taken his fiancée to the palace to pay respects to Princess Chang'an, a childhood friend of Chen Ruoli. A banquet was arranged in their honor, but Qin-Hu ended up heavily intoxicated. When he awoke, he found himself in the prison of the inner guard, accused of drunkenly attempting to assault the princess. Adding to his shock, Chen Ruoli had penned a letter accusing Qin-Hu of 72 crimes, each claim substantiated with evidence. The news struck Qin-Hu like a thunderbolt. He was in disbelief. An imperial decree soon followed, sparing Qin-Hu the death penalty due to his ancestor's meritorious service, but he could not escape punishment for his crimes. He was swiftly dispatched to the front lines in Yuzhou, assigned to the pioneer tent. As Qin-Hu pieced together these memories, he realized he had fallen into a trap. The Chen family had long sought to sever ties with him. The marriage between the Qin and Chen families was politically motivated, each seeking to strengthen their influence. However, Qin-Hu's dissolute lifestyle brought shame to the champion Marquis lineage, a family historically renowned for producing heroes with unparalleled military influence. With the passing of the old Marquise, the Chen family saw an opportunity to disassociate themselves, even going so far as to stage a scene of repudiation during the mourning period. Despite everything, Qin-Hu's love for Chen Ruoli remained unwavering, refusing to let go even in the face of her evident disdain for him. Thus, a disaster was set in motion. As for Princess Chang'an, her motives were simpler. Being a cousin of Qin-Hu's, she stood to inherit the vast wealth of the champion Marquise's estate upon his demise. These various factions, each with their own agendas, colluded, swiftly uniting against Qin-Hu. Once he became entangled with the Hao family, it was akin to being trapped in a quagmire, surrounded by countless enemies wishing for his demise. Qin-An, do you think we should find a place to take cover? The question was posed under the luminous glow of the moon, while the harsh northern wind howled across the open field, snuffing out several torches. The Wii, Nan, akin to numerous flying knives, seemed to slice through the skin of those it encountered. "No, young master, that would lead to punishment under military law." Qin and Qinan, huddling against the biting wind, hurried out of the camp, trudging through the thick snow. Qinan, slight of build, was nearly toppled over by the fierce gusts. Upon their exit, the two sentinels exchanging sly grins, scooped up handfuls of snow to extinguish the bonfire meant for warmth, and retreated into their tent. "Damn, even the rank-and-file soldiers have been bribed all to see me freeze," Qin thought bitterly. This small encampment, comprising about 20 tents and encircled by horse-drawn carriages, lacked even the basic defensive structures like spiked fences. The surrounding terrain was flat and offered no natural protection. According to Qin recollections from a previous life, this site hosted around 200 soldiers, serving as the vanguard battalion under General Li Qin of the Yu dynasty. Their mission was to confront the Liaodong Kingdom, a long-standing adversary at the border. "Young master, do you think we'll make it back alive?" Qinan, curled up in the snow, his lips and face tinged with blue from the cold, spoke with a frail voice that hinted at his looming demise. Qin felt a pang of guilt. Qinan's suffering was purely due to his association. If their situation didn't improve, death was inevitable. Those who wished for Qin death had not succeeded in the court, but seemed determined to do so in the barracks. However, Qin was not one to resign himself to fate. He was convinced of his innocence and determined not to let the accusations stand unchallenged. "Life is a relentless battle for survival. Just wait. I will not only live through this, but also return to the capital to seek justice," he resolved. "Qinan, how much money did we bring with us?" he inquired. "I have no banknotes left, only 20 taels of silver. The imperial decree has exiled us and confiscated our property," Qinan replied, a 16-year-old boy who served as Qin personal attendant. The conditions they faced were harsh. The Pioneer Battalion's daily march covered 30 miles, with tasks including road clearing, bridge construction, wood chopping, ditch digging, and camp setup. For two individuals unaccustomed to physical labor, the days were filled with the most arduous tasks, scant meals, frequent beatings, and constant derision. Qin surmised that his predecessor might have succumbed to such treatment, a fate he now had to endure. If he couldn't withstand it, death would be his only escape. "Give it to me," Qin decided, prioritizing Qinan's survival before devising their next move. Survival often boiled down to leveraging whatever resources one had, and in their case, bribery seemed the most viable option. Despite its simplicity, the effectiveness of wealth in swaying people's actions was undeniable. However, their dire circumstances limited their options. Bribing high-ranking officials was out of the question, as no one dared associate with them, and they were nearly penniless. Yet, Qin had someone in mind who could potentially be swayed: Centurion Li Xiaokun, the current leader of the Pioneer Battalion. To follow the latest chapters, Qin reminded himself to download the Haoyue novel app, as the website no longer provided updates, and the app offered an ad-free reading experience. Vol 2, Chapter 1233, The Great Heist 2, Chapter 1233, Shocking Robbery 2. Let's lower the shield, scan the warehouse, and then you can head to the spaceport to enjoy the life of the rich, the commander of the Scipio Planet Defense Fleet said lazily over the communicator, his tone tinged with a hint of irritation. Meanwhile, "Young master, wake up quickly. It's our turn to patrol." "Where am I?" Qin sat up, bewildered, feeling a chill as a strong wind blew outside, which struck him as odd. "Oh, young master, how can you be so confused? We're in the barracks. It's our turn to stand guard. If we neglect our duty, military law will take its course. Now that the old master is gone, no one can protect you anymore." "What?" Qin eyes snapped open, and he found himself in a tent facing a soldier clad in leather armor. Just as he was about to inquire further, a splitting headache overcame him, accompanied by a flood of information. Within seconds, he realized he had transmigrated from a modern special soldier to a young master named Qin, notorious as the leader of the 7 villains in the capital of an era known as the Dayu dynasty, a period that never existed in recorded history. Qinhu's ancestor was one of the 28 marquises among the 4 founders of Daiyu. 3 months prior, his father passed away, and Qinhu inherited the title of Champion Marquis. Spoiled since childhood, Qinhu had little interest in academics or martial arts. As he grew older, to ensure he was taken care of, his family arranged a marriage for him with Chen Ruoli, the eldest daughter of the Chen family, known for her beauty and intelligence. Despite his notorious reputation, Qinhu cherished his beautiful and intelligent fiancée. However, a scandal involving his childhood sweetheart, Miss Chen, unfolded. According to Qinhu's memories, he had escorted his fiancée to the palace to pay respects to Princess Chang'an, a friend of Chen Ruoli since childhood. A banquet was arranged in their honor, but Qinhu ended up intoxicated and, upon awakening, found himself in the prison of the inner guard, accused of drunkenly attempting to assault the princess. To his shock, Chen Ruoli had penned a letter accusing Qinhu of 72 crimes, each claim substantiated with evidence. The imperial decree soon followed, sparing Qinhu the death penalty due to his ancestors' meritorious service, but condemning him to a life of penance. He was swiftly dispatched to the front lines in Yuzhou. Piecing together these events, Qinhu realized he had fallen into a trap. The Chen family had long sought to sever ties with him. The marriage between the Qin and Chen families was a political alliance, each hoping to strengthen their influence. However, Qinhu's dissolute lifestyle had brought shame upon the Champion Marquis lineage, a family historically renowned for producing heroes with unparalleled military influence. With the passing of the old Marquis, the Chen family saw an opportunity to disassociate themselves, even staging a dramatic scene of breaking off the engagement at the funeral. Despite everything, Qinhu's love for Chen Ruoli remained unwavering, even as she grew to despise him. This set the stage for disaster. As for Princess Chang'an, her motives were simpler. As Qinhu's cousin, she stood to inherit the vast estate of the Champion House mansion upon his demise. Caught in a web of manipulation, each party pursued their own interests, leading to a collusion that would change Qinhu's fate forever. Under the bright moonlight, the harsh north wind whistled across the open field, extinguishing several torches. It felt like countless flying knives slicing through the skin. "Qinan, do you think we should find a place to take cover?" Qinhu asked, his voice barely audible over the wind. "No way, young master. You'll be punished by military law," Qinan replied, his voice trembling not just from the cold, but also from fear. Qinhu and Qinan, huddled against the biting wind, hurried out of the camp, their feet sinking into the thick snow. Qinan, slighter in build, was nearly knocked over by a particularly strong gust. As they left, they noticed 2 sentinels who were on duty exchanging sly smiles before dousing the bonfire meant for warmth and retreating into their tent. "Cursed luck, even the rank-and-file soldiers have been bribed, trying to freeze me to death," Qinhu thought bitterly. This was a small encampment, consisting of about 20 tents surrounded by horse-drawn carriages. It lacked any form of natural defense, situated on flat land with no strategic advantage. According to Qinhu's memories from his previous life, this camp housed around 200 soldiers, serving as the vanguard battalion under General Li Qin of the Yu dynasty. Their mission was to confront the Liaodong kingdom, a long-standing adversary on the border. "Ahem, young master, do you think we'll make it back alive?" Qinan asked, curled up in the snow, his face and lips tinged with blue from the cold. His voice was weak, each word sounding like it could be his last. Qinhu sighed internally. Qinan was caught in this situation solely because of him, and if things continued this way, they were both doomed. Those who wished for Qinhu's demise had not succeeded in the court, so they sought to do so in the barracks. But Qinhu was not one to resign himself to fate. He was determined not to let this injustice stand. "Life is a constant battle for survival. Just wait. I will not only live through this, but I will also return to the capital to settle scores," he resolved silently. "Qinan, how much money did we bring with us?" Qinhu inquired, already formulating a plan. "I don't have any banknotes left. I only have 20 taels of silver on me. The imperial decree stated that we would be exiled and our property confiscated," Qinan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Qinan, only 16 years old, served as Qinhu's personal attendant. The past few days had been grueling for them. with the Pioneer Battalion marching 30 miles a day. Their tasks included clearing paths, constructing bridges over water, chopping firewood, digging ditches, carrying water, and setting up camps. For two individuals unaccustomed to such harsh labor, the days were filled with the most exhausting work, the poorest meals, severe beatings, and constant derision. Chin-Hu knew that his predecessor might have succumbed to such treatment, which he considered deserved. However, he was determined to endure and survive, not just for his sake, but for Chin-On's as well. "Give it to me," Chin-Hu said decisively, taking the silver from Chin-On. He knew that their survival hinged on finding allies, and the simplest way to do that was through bribery. Although it was a crude method, it was often effective. Yet, in their current predicament, bribing high-ranking officials was out of the question, as no one would dare associate with them, especially without substantial funds. A name came to mind: Centurion Li Shaokun, the current leader of the Pioneer Battalion. Chin-Hu knew that if they were to have any chance of survival, they would need to win over Li Shaokun. For those interested in following the latest developments, please download the Haoyue novel app to read the latest chapters without ads. The website will no longer be updated with new chapters, which are now exclusively available on the Haoyue novel app. Vol 2 Chapter 1234, The Great Heist 3. The Shocking Heist Part 3. Boom Boom, the Jaeger-class battlecruiser descended from the sky, its main guns targeting the planet Scipio below. Each shot struck the planet's surface, creating devastating explosions that spanned tens of kilometers, leaving destruction in their wake. "Young master, wake up quickly. It's our turn to patrol." "Where am I?" Chin-Hu sat up, disoriented. His body felt cold, and a strong wind howled outside, adding to his confusion. "Oh, young master, why the confusion? We're in the barracks. It's our turn to stand guard. Military law is strict, and now that the old master is gone, no one can protect you." "What?" Chin-Hu's eyes snapped open, taking in his surroundings. He was in a tent, and a soldier clad in leather armor stood before him. Just as he was about to inquire further, a splitting headache overcame him, accompanied by a flood of information. Within seconds, he realized he had transmigrated from a modern special soldier to a young master named Chin-Hu, notorious as one of the 7 villains in the capital of the Daiyu dynasty, a dynasty that never existed in his original world. Chin-Hu's ancestor was a marquis among the 28 founding members of Daiyu. 3 months prior, his father passed away, and Chin-Hu inherited the title of Champion Marquis. Spoiled from childhood, he had little interest in academics or martial arts. As he grew older, his family arranged a marriage for him with Chen Ruoli, the eldest daughter of the Chen family, known for her beauty and intelligence. Despite his notorious reputation, Chin-Hu treasured his beautiful and intelligent fiancée. However, tragedy struck during a visit to Princess Chang'an's palace with his fiancée. After a banquet, where Chin-Hu drank excessively, he awoke in the inner guard's prison, accused of making inappropriate advances toward the princess while intoxicated. Adding to his shock, Chen Ruoli had penned a letter accusing Chin-Hu of 72 crimes, each claim well substantiated. The imperial decree spared Chin-Hu the death penalty due to his ancestor's merits, but condemned him to serve on the front lines in Yuzhou, a clear trap orchestrated by the Chen family, who had long sought to sever ties with the Qin family. The marriage had been a political alliance, but Chin-Hu's failure to live up to his family's legacy made him a liability. The Chen family, once respectful due to the old marquis's influence, now showed their true colors. Deeply in love with Chen Ruoli, Chin-Hu refused to accept the end of their relationship, despite her evident disdain for him. This series of events was a catastrophe in the making. As for Princess Chang'an, her motives were simpler. With Chin-Hu out of the picture, the vast wealth of the Champion Marquis' estate would naturally fall to her cousin. Caught in a web of political intrigue and personal betrayal, Chin-Hu realized the depth of the conspiracy against him. With his newfound understanding, he knew he had to navigate this dangerous world carefully if he hoped to reclaim his honor and protect what was left of his family's legacy. In the midst of colluding forces, each with their own agendas, unity was swiftly achieved. Indeed, upon entering the Hao family, it became evident that it was as treacherous as the sea, with numerous individuals wishing for his demise. Chinon, do you think we should find a place to take cover? The question was posed under the luminous glow of the moon, while the harsh northern wind carrying a piercing whistle swept across the open field. Its force was enough to extinguish several torches, the cold biting into the skin like countless flying knives. Impossible, young master. If we do that, we'll be punished under military law, Qin-Hu replied, as both he and Chinon braced against the wind, hastily exiting the camp and trudging through the thick snow. Chinan, slight of build, was momentarily knocked over by the gust. Noticing their departure, the two sentinels exchanging shifts exchanged a sly look, scooped up handfuls of snow to douse the bonfire meant for warmth, and retreated into their tent. Damn, even the rank-and-file soldiers have been bribed, all to see me freeze. Qin-Hu thought bitterly. Their small encampment consisted of about 20 tents, encircled by horse-drawn carriages. Notably absent were the usual defensive structures, leaving the area exposed and vulnerable. This was the vanguard battalion of Li Qin, a general of the Yu dynasty, stationed here with approximately 200 soldiers. Their mission was to lead an advance on the Liaodong kingdom, a long-standing adversary of the Yu dynasty. Ahem, young master, do you think we'll make it back alive? Chinon asked, huddled on the snow, his face and lips tinged with blue, his voice weak as if on the brink of death. Qin-Hu felt a pang of guilt. Chinon's suffering was a direct result of his own predicament. If their current situation persisted, death was inevitable. Those who wished for his downfall had not succeeded in the court, but seemed determined to do so in the barracks. However, Qin-Hu was not one to resign himself to fate. He was determined not only to survive, but to return to the capital and seek justice. Chinon, how much money did we bring with us? Qin-Hu inquired, already formulating a plan. I don't have any banknotes left. I only have 20 taels of silver. According to the imperial decree, we've been exiled, our properties confiscated, Chinon replied, a mere 16 years old and serving as Qin-Hu's personal attendant. The conditions they faced were harsh. The Pioneer Battalion's daily march covered 30 miles, with tasks including road clearing, bridge construction, wood chopping, ditch digging, and camp setup. For Qin-Hu and Chinon, two individuals unaccustomed to physical labor, this meant the most arduous tasks, the poorest meals, the harshest treatment, and the greatest indignities. Qin-Hu surmised that his predecessor might have succumbed to such treatment, a fate he now had to endure or face death himself. Give it to me, Qin-Hu decided, prioritizing Chinon's survival before considering their next move. Survival often boiled down to leveraging whatever resources one had, and in their case, bribery seemed the most viable option. Despite its simplicity, it was a strategy that could yield results. However, their dire circumstances meant that influencing high-ranking officials was out of the question, especially without significant funds. Thus, Qin-Hu's thoughts turned to Centurion Li Xiaokun, the current leader of the Pioneer Battalion. Perhaps, through him, a glimmer of hope remained for their survival. Vol 2, Chapter 12-135, The Great Heist 4. The Shocking Heist Case 4. As the Geth suddenly descended on the planet Scipio aboard a Republic warship, launching an orbital bombardment before landing with reckless abandon, the vault on the planet was a hive of activity. Quick! Box everything up! Someone shouted amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, in a completely different scenario, a young man was being roused from his sleep. Young master, get up quickly. It's our turn to patrol. Blinking in confusion, Qin-Hu sat up, feeling an unusual chill. The strong wind howling outside only added to his disorientation. Where am I? He murmured, trying to make sense of his surroundings. Oh, young master, how can you be so confused? We're in the barracks. It's our turn to stand guard. If we shirk our duty, military law will not be lenient. And now that the old master is gone, no one can shield you from the consequences. The soldier in leather armor in front of him explained. What? Qin-Hu's confusion deepened until a sudden, splitting headache interrupted his thoughts. A flood of information poured into his mind, and within seconds he understood. He had transmigrated. From a modern Special Forces soldier, he had become Qin-Hu, the notorious leader of the 7 villains in the capital of an era known as the Deyu dynasty, a dynasty that had never existed in his original world's history. Qin-Hu's ancestor was a distinguished figure, one of the 28 marquises among the 4 founders of Dayu. 3 months prior, Qinhu's father had passed away, leaving him to inherit the title of Champion Marquis. Raised in a life of privilege, Qinhu had little interest in scholarly pursuits or martial training. As he grew older, his family, hoping he would eventually take responsibility, arranged a marriage for him with Chen Ruoli, the eldest daughter of the Chen family, a woman celebrated for her beauty and intelligence. Despite his otherwise ruthless demeanor, Qinhu cherished his fiancée deeply. However, tragedy struck during a visit to Princess Chang'an, a childhood friend of Chen Ruoli. After a banquet, Qinhu, having drunk himself into oblivion, awoke in the prison of the Inner Guard, accused of making improper advances toward the princess while intoxicated. To his shock, Chen Ruoli had penned a letter accusing him of 72 crimes, each claim more damning than the last. The imperial decree that followed spared Qinhu from death, citing his ancestors' meritorious service, but he could not escape punishment. He was sent to the front lines in Yuzhou, a clear demotion. As Qinhu pieced together these memories, he realized he had fallen into a trap. The Chen family had long sought an excuse to sever ties with him. The marriage between the Qin and Chen families had been one of political convenience, aimed at strengthening both houses. However, Qinhu's failure to live up to the Champion Marquis' legacy, especially compared to the heroic figures of his ancestors, made him a liability. With the death of the old Marquis, the Chen family saw an opportunity to distance themselves, even staging a dramatic scene of disownment during the mourning period. Despite Qinhu's deep affection for Chen Ruoli, she had grown to despise him. The involvement of Princess Chang'an added another layer to the conspiracy. As Qinhu's cousin, she stood to inherit the vast wealth of the Champion Marquis' estate should Qinhu meet an untimely end. These converging interests, each party seeking their own advantage, had set the stage for Qinhu's downfall. Understanding the forces arrayed against him, Qinhu realized the depth of the betrayal. He was caught in a web of political intrigue, with little more than his wits to rely on if he hoped to survive. United in adversity, Qinhu quickly realized the depth of his predicament upon joining the Hao family. It seemed as though a sea of adversaries awaited him, each more eager than the last to see him dead. "Qinan, do you think we should find a place to take cover?" he asked under the bright moonlight. The harsh, northern wind howled, its icy whistle slicing through the open field, snuffing out several torches. The cold felt like countless knives against the skin. "No way, young master. If we do that, we'll be punished under military law," Qinhu replied, as he and Qinan braced against the wind, running out of the camp and trudging through the thick snow. Qinan, slight of build, was nearly knocked over by the gusts. As they left, the two sentries exchanging shifts exchanged sly smiles, scooping up snow to extinguish the bonfire meant for warmth before retreating into their tent. "Damn, even the rank-and-file soldiers have been bribed trying to freeze me to death," Qinhu thought bitterly. The camp, modest with about 20 tents and surrounded by horse-drawn carriages, lacked any strategic defenses. It was a flat, exposed area with no natural barriers for protection. This was the vanguard battalion of Li Qin, general of the Yu dynasty, stationed with around 200 soldiers. Their mission was to lead an assault on the Liaodong kingdom, a long-standing adversary on the border. "Ahem, young master, do you think we can make it back alive?" Qinan asked, curled up in the snow, his face and lips tinged blue from the cold, his voice weak as if on the brink of death. Qinhu felt a pang of guilt. Qinan's suffering was a direct result of his own predicament. If their situation didn't improve, they were both doomed. The court hadn't managed to kill him, but it seemed the military might. Yet, Qinhu was not one to resign himself to fate. He was determined not to let this injustice stand. "Life is a constant battle for survival. Just wait, I will not only live through this, but I will also return to the capital to settle scores," he resolved silently. "Qinan, how much money did we bring with us?" he inquired, already formulating a plan. "I don't have any banknotes left. I only have 20 taels of silver." The imperial decree stated we were to be exiled and our property confiscated, Qinan replied, shivering. At just 16, he served as Qinhu's personal attendant. The conditions they endured were harsh. The Pioneer Battalion's daily march covered 30 miles, with tasks including road clearing, bridge building, wood chopping, ditch digging, and camp construction. For two individuals unaccustomed to physical labor, the work was grueling, the food scarce and poor, and the treatment harsh. Chinhu suspected his predecessor might have succumbed to such hardships, a fate he now faced. But he was determined to endure, knowing the alternative was death. "Give me the silver," he said decisively, planning to save Chinon first before devising their next move. Survival often hinged on the ability to navigate difficult situations, and Chinhu knew that bribery, though crude, could be effective. However, with their limited resources and his tarnished reputation, bribing high-ranking officials was out of the question. His thoughts turned to Centurion Li Xiaokun, the leader of the Pioneer Battalion, as a potential ally in their quest for survival. For those eager to follow their journey, the latest chapters are available on the Haoyue novel app, offering an ad-free reading experience. The website no longer hosts the most recent updates, which can now be found exclusively on the app. This chapter does not exist, sadly. Let's proceed to the next chapter. Volume 2, Chapter 1237, The Split of Financial Giants. The spacecraft that had departed from the planet Scipio made its discreet landing at a heavily guarded spaceport on the planet Megiddo. As the hatch opened, crates filled with valuable items were meticulously unloaded and transported to the secure vaults of Megiddo. Concurrently, the lifeless bodies of 5 individuals were also removed from the craft. These bodies, discarded carelessly into a secluded valley, were soon enveloped by the relentless ice and snow, concealing their existence forever. These were not ordinary individuals. They were once the core members of the Interstellar Banking Association, controlling assets worth trillions. Official records, however, stated their demise occurred on Scipio, thus severing any ties their fate might have had with Megiddo. In the midst of these shadowy dealings, Thornhill, the acting co-chairman of the Interstellar Banking Association, made a significant announcement. He declared that a new core group of 5 highly esteemed moons would be elected on the planet Megiddo to lead. Hill emphasized the selection of moon individuals for these roles, underscoring the legitimacy and appropriateness of their leadership within the association. However, this decision was met with fierce opposition on Scipio, particularly from a human faction led by Rush Clovis. They contested Hill's authority to appoint the new core members, arguing that it was the prerogative of the core members to elect a co-chairman, not the other way around. Moreover, they pointed out that Hill's term was nearing its end, further questioning the validity of his actions. Despite the objections from Scipio, Hill's plans proceeded. On February 3, 2020, representatives from several influential families on the planets Mulinster and Megiddo convened to officially form the new Core 5. This move was outright rejected by Scipio, prompting Rush Clovis to initiate a reformation of the Interstellar Banking Association. He accused the moon families of corruption and vowed to establish a new administrative core on Scipio. By February 6th, after a ceremonial election, Thornhill was reappointed as co-chairman for an additional 5-year term by the newly formed Core 5. In response, Rush Clovis declared that Scipio and Argao would no longer acknowledge any directives from Megiddo or Mulinster. He announced the formation of a new generation of the Interstellar Banking Association on Scipio, effectively splitting the association into 2 factions. On February 7th, Clovis assumed the role of the first chief executive officer of the newly established Interstellar Banking Association. He introduced a banking council to facilitate the collection and consideration of insights from major banks and financial institutions, aiming for a more inclusive decision-making process. This move effectively discarded the previous structure of core members and co-chairmen. Clovis then presented substantial evidence of Thornhill's misconduct during his tenure as co-chairman, including the embezzlement of public funds and the allocation of nearly 1 trillion credits to the Separatists, thereby supporting their cause against the Galactic Republic. Furthermore, Hill was accused of colluding with the Geth, a mechanical life form opposed to life and civilization, and orchestrating a heist on Scipio's vault, resulting in the theft of assets worth approximately 1 trillion credits and the loss of significant customer data. Clovis publicly denounced these actions, declaring Megiddo's financial institutions under Moon control as untrustworthy. He urged the galaxy at large to boycott these banks. Meanwhile, Hill was tallying the assets he had acquired from Scipio, realizing that the actual value amounted to less than 200 billion credits, a stark contrast to the claims made against him. In a heated dispute over financial discrepancies, accusations flew between two factions of the Interstellar Banking Association, each claiming the other had misappropriated vast sums. One party alleged the Deathcore theft of 10,000 credits, while the other retorted with claims of 800 billion credits, escalating the argument to astronomical figures. Amidst this financial chaos, a shocking revelation was made. The treasury of planet Scipio was reported to contain 5 trillion yuan in assets. The question then arose, if 1 trillion was allegedly taken, what happened to the remaining 4 trillion? As the conflict intensified, both factions now split into the Interstellar Banking Association, S, backed by the Galactic Republic, and the Interstellar Banking Association, M, took decisive actions. The former announced the issuance of an additional 10 trillion credits to mitigate losses, while also declaring all lost customer data from the vault ruins as invalid. This move aimed directly at undermining the credibility of the data recently acquired by Thornhill. Refusing to be outmaneuvered, Thornhill retaliated by publicizing the acquired customer databases and bonds on the Galaxy holographic network. He challenged the Galactic Republic's financial integrity, arguing that invalidating official documents would tarnish their credibility as financial institutions. In a bold move, Thornhill invited all listed parties to validate their documents with the new digital signature of the Interstellar Banking Association, M, effectively establishing a new financial center on the planet Ordmantle. Ordmantle, known for its thriving underground financial sector, was chosen as the new hub for the Interstellar Banking Association, M. This decision was not without its provocations, as Ordmantle was under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Republic's Eighth Army. However, Thornhill was undeterred, announcing that a combined fleet was en route to Ordmantle, signaling a clear threat of force to secure their new financial stronghold. This bold strategy was not merely about reclaiming financial assets, but also a demonstration of power. Thornhill's actions went beyond financial blackmail. They were a direct challenge to the Galactic Republic's authority, signaling a new era of financial warfare in the galaxy. Vol 2, Chapter 1238, Checks and Balances. The newly restructured core group of the Interstellar Banking Association, M, now comprises representatives from several of the most influential moon families. These include the Hill family, to which Thornhill belongs, the Tonis family, previously co-chaired by Ford Tonis, and the Damask family, formerly co-chaired by Karl Damask. It's worth noting that Karl Damask, also known as Hago Damask II, is the father of Darth Plagueis. As a force-sensitive individual, he was arranged by Plagueis's master, Darth Tenebris, to marry another force-sensitive moon, leading to the birth of Darth Plagueis. This makes Darth Plagueis the only Sith Lord known to have been raised in the Sith tradition from birth. This strategic move by the Moon families is seen as an attempt to reclaim the Interstellar Banking Association, M, as an exclusively Moon enterprise, effectively barring individuals of other races from participation. This decision came in the wake of a split caused by the human faction led by Rush Clovis, prompting the Moon to take measures to protect their interests. In a bold move, they even went as far as to prohibit Moons from the planet Scipio, their ancestral home, from engaging in the association's affairs, essentially severing ties with their roots. Among the new core members, one individual stands out due to his unique background. This person, known as Semid Tang, previously served as the Minister of Economy on Dawnstar. Although the name Semid is common among moons, and Tang appears to be a pseudonym, assurances from Sandhill and confirmation from Tang Xiao, the governor of Dawnstar, verified Semid Tang's long tenure as Minister of Economics. This endorsement secured his place among the Core Five, seen as a strategic move to integrate into the economic framework of Dawn Planet, a key asset in the Confederacy of Independent Systems, known for its formidable industry, advanced technology, and powerful military. However, what Sandhill failed to notice was the significant glance exchanged between him and the Tonis family representatives when Semid Tang assumed his position. Unbeknownst to many, Semid Tang was originally Semid Tonith, a member of the Tonus family sent to Makito by Hago Damask II during Tang Xiao's early days. Despite Semied Tonus' previous betrayal of the Tonus family, which cost Ford Tonus his re-election and elevated San Hill to co-chairmanship, Semied Tang's ties to the Tonus family remained intact. Through covert negotiations facilitated by Tang Xiao, an agreement was reached with the Tonus family via Semied Tang, proving that loyalty often yields to the allure of mutual benefits. The Interstellar Banking Association, prides itself on penetrating the economic core of Dawn Planet, anticipating the conversion of its industrial, technological, and military prowess into their own strength. Meanwhile, San Hill believes he has gained an advantage by placing Semied Tang within the core group, unaware that Tang serves as a double agent for Tang Xiao, designed to maintain a delicate balance of power and interests. As the co-chairman, Thornhill wielded an immense amount of power within the Interstellar Banking Association, IBA. Both the Semied Tang and the Tonys families believed they had achieved their objectives, successfully elevating their status among the new Core Five. They anticipated competing with Sang Hill for greater benefits in the future. However, they were unaware that their own positions were being undermined, especially when Sang Hill showed compliance. The true balance of power was not as they perceived. The notion that the 5 new core members, along with Sang Hill, were a unified front was a misconception. Little did they know about the loyalty the current leader of the Damask family showed to the Sith Lord, presenting himself as the rightful heir of Darth Plagueis. The internal dynamics were so complex that if they were to form a communication group, several subgroups would emerge among them. Tang Xiao mused on the naivety of those who death with kneeling. Emperor Palpatine was the sole schemer against the IBA. He had his own designs, having infiltrated the newly formed IBA, leaving it vulnerable. The demise of the previous 5 core members, though regrettable, was crucial for Tang Xiao's plans to proceed. Their deaths were a necessary sacrifice for his ambitions. Meanwhile, the combined fleet of the IBA and the 4th group was en route to the planet Ordmantle. The fleet comprised 10 Behemoth-class battlecruisers, 5 Providence-class destroyers, 20 Generosity-class communication frigates, 5 Disobedient-class light destroyers, 2 Rucker-Hook-class battleships, and 8 Martha-class missile-heavy cruisers. The industrial sector on the planet Megiddo was underdeveloped, lacking large docks, so these warships had been assembled from various locations to defend Megiddo. Now, this defense fleet had launched an offensive towards Ord Mantell, the headquarters of the Galactic Republic's 8th Army. In the past, such a force would not have posed a significant threat to the 8th Army of the Republic. However, the current circumstances were drastically different. The 60 Jaeger-class battlecruisers of the 8th Army's main fleet had been lured into a trap on the planet Makito and were decimated by the combined forces of the Geth, the IBA, and the 4th group. With the main fleet gone, Ord Mantell was left almost defenseless, save for a few hundred small and medium-sized warships and transport vessels. On the flagship of a Shenyi-class destroyer, a Twi'lek beauty named Darth Lilim stood at the center of the bridge. Dressed in black tights that accentuated her figure, she wore an excited smile, licking her lips as she sneered, "The 8th Army of the Republic will be completely eradicated today. Please remember the first domain name of this book, website address, Vol 2, Chapter 12-139, Storm in the North, 14. Upon the arrival of Darth Lilim's combined fleet on the planet Oddmantle, they encountered minimal resistance. Fan Ke, the governor of the 8th Army of the Galactic Republic, had already lost contact with the fleet commander, Admiral Longo. Despite this setback, Fan Ke had dispatched all his capital ships, leaving behind only a selection of small and medium-sized warships, including Aquitans-class light cruisers, DP-20 gunboats, and CR-70 frigates. This decision was influenced by the Galactic Republic Navy's strategy of deploying Jaeger-class battlecruisers for offensive operations due to their superior hyperspace engine capabilities that allowed for rapid long-distance travel and quick arrival at the battlefield. If possible, they would also include the fast-moving Hurricane-class assault landing ships. Consequently, smaller and medium-sized warships were typically tasked with protecting transport ships, which possessed lower-grade hyperspace engines and required more jumps to reach their destinations. This strategic choice, while enhancing combat effectiveness, compromised the task force's mobility during long-distance raids, as its speed was limited by the slowest ships in the fleet. The situation took a dramatic turn when Governor Fan Ke witnessed a battered Republic Jaeger-class cruiser appear over the planet Scipio, launching an unprovoked orbital bombardment. His reaction mirrored that of Rush Clovis. He fainted on the spot. After being revived by his adjutant through a combination of pinching and dousing with cold water, Fan Ke hastily ordered his belongings packed, preparing to flee at a moment's notice. The recent devastating defeat of the joint fleet of the Interstellar Banking Association and the Fourth Group at the Battle of Janfatar, coupled with the alarming advance of the Geth, had already sown panic. The Geth's capture and slaughter of many planets, along with Master Sas Ting's suicide for the sake of gathering intelligence on the Geth, only added to the chaos. Now, the news of Geth's alliance with the Separatists prompted Fan Ke to choose immediate escape. However, upon Darth Lilim's fleet's arrival, the leaderless Eighth Army troops surrendered without a fight, and any spaceships unable to escape were seized as trophies by Darth Lilim. After securing control of the Eighth Army's capital's super-large space station, Darth Lilim issued an ultimatum to the Central Administration of Ord Mantell, demanding the planet's immediate surrender and acceptance of the Confederation of Independent Galaxies' governance. Ord Mantell was a planet governed by a myriad of criminal organizations, with the so-called Central Authority serving merely as a facade to maintain a semblance of order among the chaos. Despite this, the criminal elements on the planet, comprising Trandoshans, Hutts, Grands, Rhodians, humans, Bothans, and other notorious species known for their bounty hunters and gangsters, showed a surprising unity when faced with external threats. In response to Darth Lilim's demand, the Planetary Central Administration defiantly declared Ord Mantell a neutral planet that would not take sides, urging the Confederacy to respect its neutrality and freedom. Darth Lilim, unfazed, responded with a veiled threat, suggesting that the Interstellar Banking Association's desire to establish an administrative service center on the planet would be warmly welcomed, implying that resistance would be futile. Corrected and enhanced version, right? Faced with no other choice, the Central Administration of Ord Mantell reluctantly agreed to Darth Lilim's demands, but requested that the Interstellar Banking Association comply with the existing financial laws of Ord Mantell, originally crafted by a gangster named Clement. These laws, akin to an illegal financial bill, were riddled with clauses that facilitated money laundering. Darth Lilim couldn't help but laugh at their proposal. "You have 10 minutes to decide," she declared, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. To emphasize our point, she ordered the main gun of her battleship to begin charging. As a demonstration of her power, she launched a nuclear bomb at a suburb 200 kilometers away from Walport, the planet's capital, obliterating a small village in the process. With no other options, the Central Administration of Ord Mantell capitulated to Darth Lilim's terms. She then made an additional demand. To ensure the safety of the Interstellar Banking Association (EM's) assets, 3 million combat robots would be stationed on the planet. However, she assured them that this force would only be used to maintain law and order, not to occupy the planet. Furthermore, a formidable fleet comprising 40 kilometer-class battleships and 150 smaller warships would be deployed for the security of the entire planet. In preparation for the establishment of the Interstellar Banking Association (EM), a large-scale construction team was dispatched to a mountain over 5,000 meters high on the planet. Here, a new city would be built to house the operations of the association. Until the construction was completed, the capital's large space station, home to the Eighth Army of the Republic, would serve as the temporary headquarters. Additionally, construction of a massive Argonev-class interstellar base, measuring 15,000 meters on each side, would commence to protect this temporary headquarters. All construction efforts were to be managed by the Fourth Group and a construction company from Lixing Planet, ensuring that the financial benefits remained within their control. From that moment, the Eighth Army of the Galactic Republic was effectively dismantled. Although it nominally still controlled many planets in the northern border, the defection of Governor Fan Ke and the invasion of Ord Mantell by the Confederate fleet of the independent galaxy meant the Eighth Army had lost its grip on the northern territories. The planets under its jurisdiction, lacking unified command and reinforcements, were left to fend for themselves against the separatist forces. Following the destruction of the 19th and 18th Armies by the Dawn Star and the 14th Army by the occupation of Reynolds Planet by Water Tamber of the Techno-Union, the 8th Army became the 4th Legion of the Republic to fall. The Supreme Strategic Command of the Galactic Republic quickly adjusted, assigning the 7th and 9th Armies to take over some of the 8th Army's former territories and bolster defenses. However, the Republic's influence in the Northern Territory was waning. The Republic launched counterattacks in 6 directions, but progress was slow, with only the offensive led by the 10th Army making any significant headway. Yet, in that sector, the planets were of little strategic value to the separatist movement. The Republic was forced to acknowledge that control over the North had been lost. Volume 2, Chapter 1240, Storm in the North, Conclusion. In the northern reaches of the Galactic Republic, particularly towards the northwest, the situation has become dire, almost verging on hopeless. The occupation of the planet Oddmantle by separatist forces who announced their control with much fanfare left the Republic silent, unable to respond due to their overstretched resources. Meanwhile, the planet Scipio faces an invasion by the Geth, with Master Windu at the forefront of a fierce battle. The recent split within the Interstellar Banking Association has further complicated matters, requiring the Republic to ensure their safety and maintain their credit, leaving no additional forces to reinforce the northern border. A significant factor in this strategic dilemma is the perplexing intelligence received from Speaker Schiff Palpatine. Despite its incredibility, the Republic's Intelligence Department and Supreme Strategic Command have come to believe that if the Geth and the Separatists were to ally, the Republic's forces could only adopt a passive stance at the northern border. Preparations have been made to abandon the entire Northwest Territory, focusing defenses around the industrial planet Bilbringi in the Inner Rim Star region, which serves as the 7th Army's capital. In a fortunate turn, the Thorn Hills Interstellar Banking Association has been focusing on its own consolidation. After establishing themselves on Ord Mantell, they have refrained from further actions, engaging in extensive construction that effectively ignores the planet's nominal government, the Central Administration. However, the Geth continue their relentless assault in the north. 1 month later, in March of 20 BY, unable to withstand the Geth's onslaught, the Malarion Alliance announced its secession from the Galactic Republic to join the Confederation of Independent Galaxies. This alliance, comprising 7 strategically positioned planets, signed the Katumite Mutual Military Treaty and formed a regional coalition, making it a significant force in the northern galaxy. Their defection to the Confederation of Independent Galaxies represents a critical blow to the Republic's influence in the north. Following the Malarion Alliance's plea for assistance, the joint fleet of the Fourth Group and the Interstellar Banking Association launched a symbolic attack near the Angzin planet, leaving behind wreckage to suggest a tragic battle before declaring the Geth repelled. Muser, the Malarion Alliance's representative, after fleeing Coruscant, commended the Confederation of Independent Galaxies fleet for their strength and efficiency, declaring their defection as the most prudent decision, criticizing the Republic's inability to ensure their safety. Fan Ke, the former governor of the Republic's 8th Army who had fled the northern border, was arrested upon his return to Coruscant by the Republic's Intelligence Department agents. He was subjected to a secret military trial, presided over by Galactic Council Chairman Schiff Palpatine. According to jurors involved in the trial, during the trial, Palpatine was visibly enraged, pointing accusingly at Fan Ke and vehemently criticizing him. He blamed Fan Ke for his foolish actions that had plunged the economy of the entire Republic into turmoil. The Interstellar Banking Association, which could have been peacefully integrated, was now split in 2. As a result, the Republic found itself in a dire financial situation, forced to issue a new currency totaling 10 trillion credits. Unlike credit ingots, which are minted from rare metals, this new currency was essentially valueless electronic money, lacking any tangible backing. This move was akin to massively overdrawing the credit of the Galactic Republic, a short-term solution that, in the long run, could bankrupt the government. Fan Ke's reckless actions, which led to the destruction of the Eighth Army's main fleet, were the root cause of this crisis. Consequently, Fan Ke was sentenced to death and executed immediately. Additionally, the assets of both Fan Ke and the late Admiral Longo of the Eighth Army were confiscated. This severe punishment, including the rare imposition of the death penalty, underscored Palpatine's deep-seated animosity towards Fan Ke. It also highlighted how effectively Tang Xiao had outmaneuvered him through a long con strategy involving the Geth initiated over a decade earlier. Interestingly, Tang Xiao had not originally linked the Geth with the Interstellar Banking Association. His initial intention was merely to find a suitable haven for the Geth, to serve as a strategic reserve. However, given that Tang Xiao was an apprentice of Darth Plagueis, who had ties to the Interstellar Banking Association, and the fact that the association's stronghold was in the Northwest Territory, the connection between the Geth and the association became inevitable. The destruction of the planet Sojourn presented an opportunity for Tang Xiao to deploy the Geth. The Sojourn satellite, being off the galactic maps and close to Tang Xiao's allies, the Kali, became the ideal location. Consequently, the rise of the Geth was intricately linked to the disruption of the Interstellar Banking Association. Tang Xiao, along with Sang Hill, masterfully orchestrated the downfall of the Eighth Army and the split within the Interstellar Banking Association, leveraging their resources and strategic acumen. The northern part of the Milky Way, though not highly developed, became crucial in stabilizing the power dynamics involving the Kali, the Geth, the Interstellar Banking Association, and the Fourth Group. This region, akin to the galactic countryside, now had the potential to challenge the Galactic Republic, especially in comparison to the more developed southwestern region where the Dawn Star is located. Palpatine's frustration was not merely about losing control over the North, but stemmed from his failure to fully integrate the Interstellar Banking Association into his plans. In the original storyline, he had used Rush Clovis to achieve this goal. The Confederation of Independent Galaxies, by the third and final year of the war, had been economically crippled, largely due to being cut off from its funding sources, a key factor in its rapid downfall. Tang Xiao's intervention not only freed the Confederation from Palpatine's economic stranglehold, but also allowed his own plans to unfold smoothly. Following these events, Marceline Wessel, the governor of the Republic's Seventh Army, capitalized on her superior abilities and strategic insight to consolidate forces in the northern border. Her efforts effectively delayed the entry of the Geth and separatist movements into the northern territories by at least 2 years, providing a critical respite and reshaping the galactic power landscape. In the wake of the Interstellar Banking Association's split, Schiff Palpatine quickly emerged from the shadows of failure. He recognized that the lifespan of the Galactic Republic was dwindling, and certain events were merely stepping stones for his grander schemes. As the Republic neared its end, the 10 trillion credits circulating as currency were destined to become worthless, mere paper. This inevitable economic collapse would conveniently alleviate the financial burdens plaguing his nascent empire. The potential bankruptcy of countless individuals was a trivial concern to him, unworthy of his consideration. However, an unexpected development soon demanded his attention. Among the galaxy's industrial powerhouses, one name stood out: Lundili Interstellar Dynamics. This entity represented a significant factor in the galaxy's economic landscape, one that could not be ignored. Palpatine realized that any plans involving the galaxy's industrial sector had to account for Lundili's influence and capabilities. The emergence of Lundili Interstellar Dynamics as a key player in the galaxy's economy underscored the complexity of Palpatine's ambitions. It wasn't merely about the collapse of the Galactic Republic or the manipulation of currency. The real challenge lay in navigating the intricate web of galactic industries and ensuring that every piece fell into place according to his grand design. Lundeli's role in this puzzle was yet to be determined, but its importance was undeniable. Palpatine knew that to achieve his vision of a new order, he would need to engage with and possibly control such industrial giants. The path to empire was fraught with obstacles, but for someone of Palpatine's cunning and ambition, every challenge was an opportunity in disguise. This chapter does not exist. Sadly, let's proceed to the next chapter. Vol 2, Chapter 1242, Wedding Director Celeste Moan, now known as Judgment, lightly bit her lower lip and asked, "What do you want me to do on planet Onderon?" "I don't know. You can do whatever you want," Tang Xiao replied. "What I can tell you is that Onderon's fall to the Galactic Republic's offensive is inevitable, so go there and make your own decisions." After a moment of thought, he added, "If possible, there is one thing. Bring Zhang Jieru back to me." "I understand," Judgment said, closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. "If you wish to protect the Dawn Star and those under your rule, then I will use my power, and the power of the amulet, to drive it." She paused, then continued, "But if you intend to..." Struggling to find the right words, she finally said, "If you intend to disappoint me, then I will not hesitate to kill you myself. Even if it means fighting a losing battle, I will fight to the death." With those words, Judgment turned and walked towards the door. As she passed by, she raised her hand, and the spaceship key flew into her grasp as if by magic, and she left with determined strides. At that moment, the aged voice of Lucien Del Rey echoed in Tang Xiao's mind. "You know she won't make a choice that's detrimental to you, yet you still play this game, making her believe she has a choice. In reality, you never gave her one." Tang Xiao smiled slightly. "Sometimes, seeing too clearly isn't a blessing. It can shorten your life. Take yourself as an example. If you were still alive, I would almost certainly have to kill you." There was a pause before Dre responded, "But you are correct about one thing. Celeste Moan was raised as a shadow from childhood, and because of this, you're confident that even if you leave, she won't leave here, risking death at your hands. On the contrary, without the influence of Kane's Moore's ghost, she will want to explore this world 4,000 years later." Tang Xiao remained silent, merely smiling. Free from the 4,000-year nightmare and experiencing long-lost relaxation and freedom, she will undoubtedly enjoy her time on Dawn Planet. Your subordinates will go out of their way to cater to her needs, making her life even more joyful. This will make her see another side of you, the side that is a leader of civilization. The stark contrast between the dark, evil Sith Lord and the enlightened leader will deeply attract her. Lucien Del Rey continued. Tang Xiao still said nothing. "But you're still deceiving her. She can't see the cold military factories on Dawnstar's industrial ring, nor the terrible war machines. Your ability to manipulate is indeed terrifying, but you're merely exploiting her pure heart," Lucien Del Rey accused. "A pure heart that has slaughtered millions?" Tang Xiao retorted coldly. "It was indeed my fault. I led her down this path," Lucien Del Rey sighed, "and you've brought her back to this path of killing. She never had the chance to control her own destiny. Perhaps in another parallel universe, she did take control at the last moment of her life," Tang Xiao mused, then thought about how, with the help of Karnis Moore, she ultimately killed Darth Krayt, the man closest to a one-man Sith. "She has an incredibly resilient soul. Now that you have her, I can only hope you treat her well," Lucien Del Rey said, his voice tinged with emotion. "At least, let her meet a dignified end." "That depends on whether she proves useful to me," Tang Xiao remarked coldly, and with a wave of his hand, the force of death silenced Lucien Del Rey's spirit. Then, he walked out of the office, where a luxuriously dressed female executive awaited him. Approaching with a bow, the individual said respectfully, "Governor, Your Excellency, on behalf of Lundeli, Gali Ulan inquires once more about your agreement to the marriage with her youngest daughter, Adele Ulan." Tang Xiao's brow furrowed as he asked, "And you are?" "Oh, I am Jarno, the coordinator assigned specifically to manage this wedding on your behalf. Mr. Helmut, Zemo appointed me. This role is the greatest honor of my life," the woman, Jarno, replied, barely containing her excitement. Tang Xiao gave her a brief glance and responded with a cool tone. "The affairs between me and Lundeli, including the matter of marrying Adele, should be addressed by the Ministry of Intelligence, and the supreme command. Since when does it fall to a wedding coordinator? Jarno maintained her polite smile and answered respectfully, "Before my appointment as the marriage coordinator, I served as a Colonel Intelligence Officer in the Dawn Star Military Intelligence Department, codenamed 009. So this matter indeed falls within my purview. Additionally, I run a wedding company on Coruscant." Tang Xiao, taken aback, softened his demeanor. It appears the Military Intelligence Department is indeed a reservoir of talent. Even with a mere scan using the original force, I mistook you for a mere etiquette instructor or matchmaker. "This is the highest compliment, Your Excellency, Governor," Jarno replied with a graceful smile. Tang Xiao nodded and said, "Then convey to Gali Ulan that I consent to the marriage." Jarno added, "Actually, my advice is that it would be better for you to personally respond to this matter. That's why I sought you out. The current situation in the Lundili galaxy is quite complex and perilous. Your direct reply could bolster Gali Ulan's confidence." "Oh, how dire is the situation with the Lundili Interstellar Power Company now?" Tang Xiao inquired, his concern evident. "It's not so much the severity, but issues within their company's management. Politically, things haven't reached a point of no return," Jarno explained. "However, you're aware that the current state of Rendili is, in many ways, a consequence of actions taken by the Galactic Republic. Thus, any developments in Rendili should have been anticipated by the Republic. For us, this represents the worst-case scenario." A cold smile appeared on Tang Xiao's face. "So, for the Galactic Republic, the unfolding events on Lundili's end are entirely within our grasp. Is this also considered unfavorable for them?" "Indeed, this is all thanks to your astute leadership, Mr. Governor," Jarno replied, sharing a knowing smile. Vol 2, Chapter 12-143, Boiling Frogs in Warm Water. Tang Xiao returned to his office and initiated a secure communication link with Gary Ulan. Contrary to Jarno's advice to dress more formally for the occasion, Tang Xiao chose to remain in his usual attire. He explained to Jarno that it was important to maintain a clear distinction in their relationship with Lundili. As the connection was established, Gary Ulan's image flickered into view through the holographic projection, marred by interference. It was evident that there were disruptions originating from Lundili's side. Tang Xiao noticed that Gary wasn't wearing his usual elaborate attire, but was instead clad in simple work clothes, indicating his recent preoccupations. "Apologies, Your Excellency, Governor, for the poor quality of our communication. The Galactic Republic's Intelligence Department has surrounded our galaxy with signal interception devices, attempting to monitor all hyperspace communications," Gary Ulan explained with regret. "The Galactic Republic's vigilance is not without reason. As Jarno mentioned earlier, your current predicament is precisely what Palpatine anticipated," Tang Xiao remarked. "You're suggesting Palpatine orchestrated this situation intentionally?" Gary inquired, seeking clarification. "Indeed, as I've previously discussed with your father, Benjila Ulan, the challenge facing Rendili Interstellar Power Company isn't whether to rebel, but how to extricate yourselves from the Galactic Republic safely," Tang Xiao elucidated. Gary Ulan sighed, his frustration evident. "I fail to understand why we must be the ones to suffer. Why not target Corellian Engineering Company or Kuat Drive Yards instead?" Tang Xiao responded coolly, "The fate of Corellian Engineering Company is intertwined with the entire Corellian galaxy, affecting 5 habitable planets and the extensively developed Corellian trade spine. Do you truly believe Palpatine would risk destabilizing such a critical region? As for Kuat, they've been politically savvy from the start, aligning their ostentatious shipbuilding with the desires of power-hungry Republican senators. To Palpatine, they are allies, so if not them, who else would bear the brunt of his actions?" Gary Ulan fell silent, absorbing the harsh reality. After a moment, he ventured, "If you were to intervene, could you guarantee Rendili's safety?" Tang Xiao's response was measured but firm. "Your request for guarantees reveals a lack of maturity, Gary Ulan. Only the naive expect assurances of success before taking any risks. Such individuals are doomed to fail in both their personal and professional lives. So, which are you?" Gary's silence lingered before he hesitantly asked, "Will the Death Angel intervene? My father mentioned, you are the Death." Before he could finish, an unseen force constricted his throat, cutting off his breath and his words. Hurled several meters back by an invisible power, Gary Yulan was overcome with fear. It was his first encounter with the formidable might of the Force, and the oppressive aura emanating from Tang Xiao was unlike anything he had experienced, even from a Jedi Knight. In that moment, Gary felt as though he was staring into the abyss of death itself. Scrambling to his feet, Gary hurried back to the communication device, not daring to show any further disrespect. "You must understand one thing, Gary Yulan," Tang Xiao stated icily. "The Death Angel is beyond the reach of people at your level. And if you're considering offering your daughter's hand, remember, she can only be betrothed to Tang Xiao, the governor of Star Dawn, not the Angel of Death. Adele is my most cherished daughter. She can't." "Let me propose an alternative condition," Tang Xiao said, his smile taking on a sinister edge. "If you desire the assistance of the dead angel, that's acceptable. However, you must kill your own daughter with your hands in front of me. How does that sound?" Gary Yulan's reaction was immediate and visceral. He leaped up, fury written all over his face, but upon locking yes with Tang Xiao, his anger dissolved into desperation. Lowering his head, he pleaded in a subdued voice, "Please, don't make me do this." Tang Xiao's response was a prolonged, mocking laugh, offering no reprieve to Gary's plea. Instead, he pressed on. "It appears the situation for you and Rendili is indeed dire. Enlighten me." 3 days prior, Gary began, the Jedi Order had dispatched a Jedi Master and his apprentices to assume control of the defense fleet orbiting the planet Rendili. Concurrently, the activities of the Republic Intelligence Department had intensified. The Galactic Republic has started to view us with suspicion. Furthermore, many of our shipyard managers have been swayed by the Republic's influence. "It's not a matter of being swayed," Tang Xiao interjected with a mocking tone. "After conducting some research, you've realized that your own popularity isn't as high as you thought, correct?" Gary, unable to conceal the truth any longer, nodded in agreement. "Yes. My father, Benjila Ulan, conducted a covert investigation and concluded that our prospects were bleak. The Rendili Interstellar Power Company has been a cornerstone of the Galactic Republic for over 20,000 years, playing a pivotal role in its founding. Given this history, your ties with the Republic are complex and not easily untangled. This is precisely why Palpatine believes he can manipulate you with ease," Tang Xiao explained, "and you find yourselves utterly powerless to resist." Gary sighed, the weight of their predicament evident in his voice. "Though we haven't reached a breaking point, our decline has been gradual. The few contracts the Galactic Republic has left us are merely to keep our basic operations running, preventing us from having to shut down our interstellar shipyards just to survive. Before the war, my father and I believed we lost contracts to the Kuat drive yards due to a misjudgment of the situation and our failure to design suitable warships." He continued, "At that time, my father, with his considerable influence, managed to persuade Willix Blissex, the chief battleship designer from Kuat drive yards, to design the Victory-class Star Destroyer for us. Yet, our situation didn't improve in the slightest. That's when my father realized something was amiss." Tang Xiao couldn't help but sneer. "Your father is indeed capable. If it were you in charge instead of him, I'm afraid not even the dead angel's intervention could save you." Gary's tone was one of resignation. "Survival isn't our immediate concern, given our 25,000-year foundation. However, if this situation persists, it's only a matter of time before we're absorbed by Kuat. This is our most desperate reality. Our shipyard heads and managers at all levels fail to see the impending doom, mistaking it for a temporary downturn," Gary lamented. "Ah, the proverbial frog in slowly boiling water, oblivious to its impending doom. Palpatine has indeed exploited all your vulnerabilities," Tang Xiao mused. It was no wonder that in the original storyline, despite the Rendili Interstellar Power Company's attempt at rebellion, it was swiftly quashed. They couldn't even secure their own defense fleet, which ultimately defected to the Republic. In the end, Palpatine seized everything from the Rendili family, including their 25,000-year legacy, paving the way for the monstrous emergence of the Kuat drive yards. Vol 2, Chapter 1244, The Governor's Wedding, 1. On January 19, 20 BY, the the galaxy was on the brink of a significant upheaval. Master Sastin was on the planet Kali, gathering intelligence on the Geth, while a storm was brewing within the inner circles of the galaxy. This storm would eventually lead to the split of the Interplanetary Banking Association into two factions. The catalyst for this division was an event in the Lundili Galaxy, a key warship manufacturing hub for the Galactic Republic. An unassuming Gozanti-class transport ship, its hull painted white and adorned with a double interlocking symbol, emerged from the hyperspace lane into the Corellian system. Given the ongoing war and the uncertain situation in the nearby Lundili Galaxy, the Corellian system was under strict control by the Galactic Republic government. A Z-95 fighter jet, piloted by a man in his 40s dressed in casual attire, approached the transport ship. Despite his laid-back appearance, the pilot's adept handling of the controls revealed his background as a skilled, retired soldier, now working in security. Upon receiving the pilot's instructions to halt and prepare for inspection, the transport ship complied, reducing its engine output and deactivating its shields. The pilot expertly maneuvered his fighter around the transport, activating an external scanner to thoroughly examine its cargo hold. The communication channel opened, and the pilot was greeted by a man with blonde hair and a stubbled face, wearing a leather jacket. The man, full of energy, offered a friendly greeting and suggested a drink in Corellia as a form of bribe, a common practice among those involved in smuggling or treasure hunting. The pilot, familiar with the implications of such an offer, understood that the mention of Corellia indicated a modest bribe, sufficient for a few days of enjoyment. However, he was not interested in the bribe, and instead requested the man's personal data and destination. The man introduced himself as Kunter, claiming to be transporting goods for Corellia. The pilot verified Kunter's information against the database, which confirmed his identity as a cargo ship pilot affiliated with the Corellia Engineering Company. However, given the company's vast operations, it was unclear what specific task Kunter was undertaking. This encounter marked the beginning of a series of events that would ripple through the galaxy, intertwining the fates of individuals and factions in unexpected ways. The information at best confirms his background is legitimate. If he truly is an official employee of the Corellia Engineering Company, that would be foolish. The Gozanti-class ship's double-ring logo, though unfamiliar to me, is clearly not that of the Corellia Engineering Company. Who knows what this person is smuggling? "Okay, where are you headed?" the Republic pilot asked, his skepticism evident. Nonetheless, he casually sent a text message, which was a bank account number. Seconds later, he watched as his bank balance increased significantly, more than he had anticipated. The unexpected windfall lifted his spirits. "Sir, I'm bound for Lundili on this trip," Kunter revealed, his voice low. The Republic pilot nearly choked. His initial impulse was to return the money, but he knew well that once payment was made, it wouldn't be accepted back. His frustration peaked. "To Lundili? Are you unaware that all spaceships heading to the Lundili Galaxy are currently under strict surveillance? Leave at once." Kunter quickly tried to calm the situation. No, sir. Please, hear me out. You should review your scan results first. What I'm transporting is medical equipment, and this time I'm operating on behalf of Meth Industries. It's nothing suspicious. Upon reviewing the scan data, the pilot indeed saw dozens of medical pods in the transport ship's cargo hold. However, these pods seemed different from the standard models, appearing to be a new design. His curiosity piqued. He then noticed something alarming. "Wait a minute. There are people in your cargo hold? Over 100. Kunt shared with a hint of mystery. "You're not aware, but these are clones." "Clones?" the pilot echoed, perplexed. The Lundili Interstellar Power Corporation is developing a new medical frigate, specifically for clone troopers. These units were ordered by Lundili from Medical Technology Industries, along with 120 unconscious clones. They're intended for experiments to validate the medical frigate's performance, Kunte explained, hinting at the sensitive nature of the information. Seeing his bank balance increase yet again, the pilot found the proposition increasingly tempting. However, he maintained his composure. No. The matter of traveling to the Lundili Galaxy is too delicate. Kunte understood his concerns. Indeed, it's a sensitive issue, which is why you should report it to your commander. After all, it's just a few medical pods and some clones. I doubt you've conducted a thorough inspection of the ship. The pilot's bank balance surged once more. A substantial bribe had been deposited. His tone softened. All right, I'll report to my superior. The sum was enticing, making his heart race, but he was aware that he'd have to surrender the majority of it to his chief. Without his chief's approval, he wouldn't see a penny of it. More than 10 minutes later, the Gozanti-class transport ship, now officially listed as carrying medical equipment and supplies, was cleared for departure. Approaching the prearranged course, the ship activated its hyperspace engine and vanished in a flash of white light. You're quite the philanthropist, cunt. Do you realize your few words have essentially dispatched a frigate? Tang Xiao remarked, standing beside Kunte. Kunte chuckled. Compared to you, about to marry into Lundali's elite, still a fierce 16-year-old girl, why shouldn't I be generous?